Hello everyone, and welcome back to Philosophical Fridays. This is the show where I take a big philosophical question, I break it down, and hopefully by the end of the video we have an answer. So, this week's question is, why is freedom so important? So since July 4th is coming up tomorrow here in the States, I decided it would be a good time to ask this question. For those of you who don't know about July 4th here in the States, because I do have a few international viewers, on July 4th, 1776, we signed the Declaration of Independence, which we basically declared our freedom from Great Britain for a couple of reasons. No, we didn't want to quarter soldiers in American homes, no taxation without representation, and Britain didn't like that to a large extent because of mercantilism, and they, wanted to benefit off of American goods and resources here in the States. It wasn't American at the time, but it would go on to be American. And so they obviously fought back, and that's how the American Revolution came about, the Revolutionary War. And later went on to having the Constitution being ratified, and a lot of those parts that we didn't like about being ruled by Great Britain, no taxation without representation, no quartering soldiers, stuff like that, all became integral parts of the Bill of Rights, which was ratified alongside the Constitution. So I wanted to talk a bit about why freedom is so important. It's something we take for granted so much here in America because we've had freedom for so long. Everyone in our generation has grown up having free speech and a lot of these guaranteed human rights that not everyone in the world today has. And so because it's Independence Day tomorrow, like I said, here in the States, I wanted to talk a bit about why I believe freedom is so important and what it kind of means. If you look at some of the most innovative philosophers of our time, you look at, Aristotle, not of our time, but you know what I mean, and you look at Locke, John Locke, who basically pioneered the principles, a lot of the basic principles of our democracy here in America today. They knew that in order for humans to kind of grow and thrive as a species, that we needed freedom. We needed the ability to self-determine, and it was more, humans all helping themselves out, by having free speech and having a lot of these guaranteed human rights that we all take for granted here in America today, but were integral parts of their philosophies at the time, and they were, I believe, correct in saying that, for us to self-develop, to be the best that we can be, the best us we can be, we need to have these freedoms that we now have here in America today. And I think one of the really great examples of why freedom is so important is you look at North Korea today, run by Kim Jong-un. Is a country that's facing starvation, pretty bad starvation there in North Korea. And what's kind of interesting dynamic about that is South Korea has offered to help out North Korea, and basically said, we'll help you so long as you agree to ask for help. And that would require Kim Jong-un, who's a very egotistical man. He believes he's kind of a god and this and that. It would be a big kind of hit at his pride to go to South Korea and say, our people are starving, we really need your help, so can you please help us? That would be a big thing for him to do, but I kind of, as of recording of this video, it hasn't happened, but it would be hard for me to see Kim Jong-un kind of owning up to this and saying, yeah, we're starving, can we please have your help? Because it's a pride thing for him. He believes that, he's this god and everything is great in his country and blah blah blah. He wouldn't want to acknowledge to them that, we need your help, because there's been this long-standing rivalry between North Korea and South Korea, obviously North Korea being a dictatorship and South Korea not. Obviously a war was fought and this and that. I'm not going into the history of, North and South Korea, but my point is that if something like this were to happen, the same scenario, say, here in the United States, all of a sudden we were starving, people were dying of starvation, which is the case in North Korea, as far as I'm concerned, and, we would all heavily criticize Obama and say, if Canada, for instance, were to offer us, we'll help you so long as you ask for help, the same North and South Korea. The United States is below Canada, but for all intents and purposes, Canada offers to help us out. And, President Obama, out of pride, said, we don't need your help, Canada. We've got it under control, when we clearly don't. North Korea is starving, and in this circumstance that I just made up, America's starving. And, you know, President Obama declines this. And as a nation that has freedom of speech, we would speak out against the government. We would say, you know, how could you not agree to help us? We're dying of starvation. Canada's offering to help us. All you have to do is accept this offer, and you're not accepting it. People would get outraged over it. It'd be all over the news, all over social media. Everyone everywhere would be, you know, in a big hubbubaloo. It's a bad word, but not a bad word, but it's not a good word to describe the situation. Anyway, the point is that people would get really upset over, you know, President Obama not agreeing to take this handout basically from Canada. As a free nation, if our people were starving, we would obviously speak out against this, especially if Canada was offering to help us. Like in this instance, they are. We're just taking North and South Korea and applying it to the United States as a free nation. And we kind of take that for granted. We have the ability to criticize our government. Yeah, and a lot of stuff that goes along with free speech, and that's even ignorant and bigoted speech to a large extent. In a free-speaking nation, you have that ability. And once you lose your ability of freedom for speech, which, like I've said several times in this commentary, is something that we largely take for granted here in the United States, the government kind of... There's nothing stopping the government at that point. If you can't criticize your government, you can't openly and freely speak. Like a lot of these great philosophers, to go kind of full circle, Aristotle and Locke, and all these guys believed in, you wouldn't have the ability to, you know, self-actualize, to become your full potential, because your government would be oppressive. You look at, you know, the Nazis, the modern day North Koreans, all these societies, they all share that in common, is they don't have the ability to speak out against their government, which is something that we have here in America. We have freedom of speech. We're allowed to speak out. We're allowed to speak what we want, and we're allowed to speak out against the government. And I have nothing. Our government isn't perfect, don't get me wrong. I don't really have anything wrong with our government. I mean, there's a lot of bipartisanship and a lot of problems in the government, don't get me wrong, which I'm allowed to say because of freedom of speech. And because I do believe in freedom of speech, I do believe that people are allowed to speak ignorantly and bigotedly. But bigotedly isn't really a word, but be that as it may. But that's why I believe freedom of speech is so important, is because we wouldn't be able to actualize our potential if we didn't have the ability to be free-speaking, free-willed, free-thinking beings. That's what sets humans apart from animals. That's what makes us the most intellectual creatures, and that's why humans survive and thrive, is because of our ability to free think, to free speak, free will, free-minded, all of these free things, you know. And that's what makes humans separate from animals, you know. Aristotle, you know, man is a rational animal. It's so important. That's why freedom is so important, because it's a major part of us. Not only be able to face corruption within our government, but to be able to self-actualize and to be able to be individuals. And, you know, when you don't have the ability to free speak, you don't have the ability to speak out against your government, you don't have free-thinking, free-willed human beings, you just have a bunch of drones at that point, mindless sheep, which is what a lot of these oppressive governments wanted. They wanted people who believed whatever they were spewing and didn't have the ability to speak out against it. And like I said, that's what a lot of these oppressive governments shared in common, is that you didn't have the ability to speak out against them. And, you know, they obviously had big militaries to prevent you from doing that anyway. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about in this commentary, why I believe freedom is so important. It's something we take for granted here in America, but it's something that other places in the world still don't have today. And I just wanted to kind of reflect on that, why I believe freedom is so important, and kind of appreciate my ability to free speak and free think, free will, and all that stuff. And, you know, be able to share my views regardless of how ignorant or how bigoted they are. I don't believe my views are ignorant, but just saying that I love that ability to be able to do that, and I think that's something we kind of take for granted, and so that's why I decided I wanted to talk about it here today. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Philosophical Fridays. Guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, will you? And subscribe if you want to see more of these weekly Philosophical Fridays videos. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.